Humanity enters the third decade of the 21st century, certain in the knowledge that this planet is broken. Climate chaos, deforestation, plastic pollution. The sixth mass extinction since life began. To say there is nothing they can do would not be true. This is a species evolved to problem solve, to manipulate the environment or adapt to its changes. Never were these attributes, these evolutionary flukes, more vital than now, when the urgency for adaptation is of their own making. They can collaborate, overturn outdated ideologies. Each has the capacity to act. Every child, woman, man.
I came across this word rewilding, which immediately just exploded in my head. And one road after another led towards Alan. I realised that he had been pioneering the approach for many years that I'd just begun to stumble across. And the thoughts I'd been having were thoughts he'd been having 25 years before.
I first became aware of the work of Watson Featherstone and of Trees for Life back in the 1990s, and I remember being really quite inspired by the vision that Alan had and the picture that was being painted of a more vibrant, restored Scotland that was good for both nature and people.
I think it's great that individuals like Alan are able to do the work that they've done and inspire people, and obviously that's been great and that's stimulated many other people to go and follow in his footsteps.
I realised that we were the last generation that could save this forest. I had no background in conservation, I had no training in biology or ecology. I had no physical resources, I had no access to land, I had no skill, but I had the most important thing. I felt a deep connection with the land. I felt the land was calling out for help.
If you were an ecologist, you would look at the forest and think, this is a dying forest. I used to think of it like an old people's home, you know. It's just full of 250-year-old trees and nothing else.
The Highlands of Scotland famously were described by Sir Frank Fraser-Darling as being a wet desert. Biologically, it's as impoverished as other desertified areas in the world. Civilizations don't begin in deserts. Deserts are what we leave behind.
We had an incredibly rich and abundant and diverse ecosystem. And we've become used to a situation of extreme depletion that we think is normal and natural. We have to denormalize that.
It's clear we're in a climate emergency. There's an imperative to try and tackle this. It's going to have dire consequences for future generations if we don't. And I think restoring habitats it could make a huge contribution to that.
We're actually seeing climate change effects manifested in the biota around us, where we're seeing an increase in all those species that prefer milder conditions. We're losing these cold-loving Arctic alpine species.
We have to find a new way of living in harmony and balance. That is the task ahead of us.
I mean, I think for anybody that has children, clearly you're always thinking about the future and what the future is going to be like for them and how you want to motivate them to think and feel about the world.
Now we've got to learn to do something that's never been attempted before. We have to learn to give back more than we take. And that's my hope for the future.
I can't think of a better legacy from any human life than the one that Alan is laying down. Because what he's setting up is something that will outlive him possibly for thousands of years. He talks about a 250-year project. I love the idea that a project can continue long after you have left the living world.